right, so welcome everyone. This is the first in what may end up being a bit of a series. The idea for this potential series of webinars and everything is kind of taking clients or taking people who are interested in working on their health and fitness, taking you through somewhat of the process that I go through from a more objective, slightly disconnected perspective, so that you can kind of see all the factors that are likely to impact a person or are going to impact a person, and how to kind of structure everything in such a way, set up the framework, and then execute it in such a way that you maximize the chances of that person or yourself seeing success, if that made any sense at all. So this first one it shouldn't take too long at all. I'm going to go pretty quickly through it. It's called Laying the Foundation for Change. It ultimately is kind of a discussion on goals and kind of how that establishes your framework, and a few considerations and maybe some new perspectives on goal setting and that kind of subject, based off a lot of reading I've been doing. In particular, 2 books I'm reading, one on coaching psychology and one on something called motivational interviewing. And the thrust of both of these things as they work together is to help guide individuals through reflective listening and specific questions, guide an individual through the process of change in such a way that they're kind of leading the charge. And that's a really new, exciting direction I kind of want to go with my training and with my coaching, is taking the individual and acting as a guide and an educator and facilitating that assistance through their process. But they're kind of going to be the ones who are choosing where they want to direct their energy week to week, month to month, in terms of growth and change in their whole progress. So you'll probably, for clients in here, you'll be noticing me doing some of these things or practicing them, and they're going to be quite obvious at first because they have to be as I practice. But that's kind of the direction we're going. So I'll get stuck in. Laying the foundation for change. How do I oh, good. Okay. Is it going to work with the arrows now? Okay, cool. So context and scope. What we're working on. Oh, sorry. This is the contents page, not the first slide. So we're going to look at context and scope. Unconscious habits and routines dictate health. So what's that about? Establishing a workable framework. So the framework that we're going to use, or that you're going to use, that actually works for you, not against you. And the practical implications. So it's one thing to talk about all this stuff in theory. It's another to actually use it and do it. So context and scope. Improving health through nutrition and exercise. That's kind of the thrust of this presentation. Health can mean a whole lot of things. It can be mental health, your medical health, environmental health. There's so many, social health. While there is always going to be crossover and bleed through with different aspects of what makes you a healthy individual, the scope of what we're going over tonight is framed more in the context of your nutrition and exercise. You could also include their lifestyle. Yeah, there's a lot of crossover. Okay, so unconscious habits and routines dictate health. So daily routine and habits, a lot of you have heard me say this a million times before, but going to keep driving it. That's not the totality of your lifestyle, but it makes up a considerable portion of your lifestyle. What I find with a lot of people who come to work with me is their lifestyle has ended up in such a way that it's working against them. And as I've said before, really, really briefly, that's usually because people will take the path of least resistance to adapt to changes in their life. So I'll often cite when people move from from high school into university. Women in particular are a good example when they get married and start having kids. And then middle age also tends to throw different obstacles at people, and we tend to just roll with the punches in whatever way we can best handle them. And a lot of times that means suddenly our activity levels go down, the amount of junk food or processed or takeaway food that we have goes up, especially when you're transitioning from high school to university because you don't know how to cook. And all those things typically cause people to gain weight, lose strength and fitness. And you can see how those external factors, as you roll with them in various ways, compound on each other, and you end up with a lifestyle that's kind of beating you down. So we want to try and make those unconscious habits and routines conscious so we can address them. One thing I find with a lot of people that come to work with me is there are gaps in their understanding. So a good one may be weight loss is always a great one, but muscle gain is another good one. People will come with their own preconceived ideas of what weight loss is and how it works. And so as I kind of come from my perspective, which hopefully is the generally more informed perspective, I try and educate them as to how weight loss and muscle gain and stuff work. But any gaps in that understanding, some of you who've been with me for a while know that the nuances and complexities of those mechanisms unfold over time. I can't dump it all on you at once. But in our ignorance, we tend to fill the gaps with hearsay and other stuff that we've picked up from other places. So a big part of when you're looking at your own journey with health and fitness is just being aware that you could have these unconscious biases or misunderstandings or places of ignorance there that you're not totally aware of. So if you come at things like, one that I hear all the time is, if your insulin level spikes, you're going to get fat and get unfit, which is just mind-numbingly frustrating to hear. But if you find yourself adopting that belief and you're coming into doing this, you need to ask, well, why do I believe what I believe? Where is that coming from and how valid is it? And if you're kind of like, I heard it from someone I trust, that person may be right, but it may be time for you to go and do the reading and the research, just a little bit of questioning for yourself so you can make sure the information you're working with and your presuppositions are actually accurate. Because if they're not, they can really screw you and take you into all these weird, particularly with health and nutrition, fitness and nutrition, all these weird, keto, carnivore, freaky places that just don't really work for anyone. That's not technically right. They work for some people, but they don't work for the reasons that the zealots think they do. I've already given an example, so we'll skip that. Kind of circling back to the lifestyle, the routine and habits thing is, I get people who come and see me. I'll obviously be using that example a lot from my own experience. And they want to see profound change in their bodies, obviously for their health, whether aesthetically or performance, or just they're wanting to lose fat or whatever for health. And that's a profound change. You have to understand gaining muscle, losing fat. They're profound things that happen to the body, especially if you're wanting to see them in large degrees. But expect, if you want to see profound changes, that you actually need to make profound changes. And that may not happen all at once. What's this? But doesn't cutting carbs generally lead to a caloric deficit? Sure, but you can cut fat as well, John. Like you've hit the nail on the head. A caloric deficit, cutting out one of the 3 macronutrients generally causes a caloric deficit, but that's not how the keto guys would generally argue it. Anyway, yeah, you need to appreciate that it's going to take profound changes to your lifestyle, because for most people, it's a lifestyle that they've adopted that's working against them. So if you're not willing to make changes to how you shop, how you actually approach your meals, how you accept the fact that to build muscle especially is going to involve some pain, some physical sacrifice, some discomfort. If you're unwilling to accept that there are changes that need to happen in order to bring about the changes you want, you're never going to get anywhere. So make sure you start with, if you are attempting to make a change, you have to make some sacrifices. It's going to be part of it. Okay. Establishing a workable framework. So we'll get a couple of little pretty pictures here. I'm going to use the building the house analogy because it just is really helpful. Start by having the right information. Like I said, challenge your presuppositions. The things that you believe already, you may not really know why you believe them. Start with the right information. Start with the blueprint. Have the right tools and materials. So that could be addressing your sleep, or understanding that sleep is going to be an important factor, understanding that nutrition, building muscle, losing fat, protein is going to be a big one. That's going to play an important role. For any vegetarians watching, because I have a couple, I have at least one in here, and others, other clients and other people I know who are vegetarians who might watch. That also means paying particular attention to things like your iron levels and the quality of food that you're having. Really, really important. You need the materials there to actually work out or act on the information that you have, and then follow the plan in the correct order. Okay, so that's what you need to be doing if you're approaching your health and fitness. You really need a blueprint of what the heck am I trying to achieve? How do I achieve it? What do I need to what do I need to do, or what do I need to acquire in order to act on this information? And then make sure you follow it consistently in sequence, and don't expect things to happen quickly. Okay, there are, to follow the building of a house analogy, there are rainy days and there are accidents that happen and things will interrupt. So don't expect a smooth process. And don't get caught up in the small details when you have no hot water. So that's a really stupid little, again, with the building analogy I came up with. But don't get concerned about the smaller details. I don't know, John, you know things about building houses. There are small details, I'm sure, building a house that just aren't relevant when you don't even have running hot water, right? So don't get caught up in the finer details of advanced programming for muscle gain or medications and more tricky things for weight loss. Is that John chatting? No, okay, I don't know what that is. Yeah, don't get caught up in the details that really don't matter so much to you. Get the basics right. If you're eating, sleeping, training hard, and being consistent, that's like 90% of the things you need to do, taking care of, and the other stuff we can work on later. All right, moving right along. How are we going for time? Okay, we're actually going pretty well for time. Excellent. Okay, set a goal, but actually think about it. So one of the interesting things I noticed, I've got the act and revise. Just blot that out. Ignore that act and revise bit down there. One of the things I noticed with particularly the coronavirus, when I got everyone to really rethink about their goals, was I got them to rethink about their goals, but what I noticed was a lot of people either had no idea what they wanted, which was really interesting, or they were really, really bad at articulating what they wanted. So a lot of the time, people say, I want to be fit. And it's like, okay, that is so ridiculously vague. What do you mean by fit? And they're like, I don't know, like I can run a lot, lift a lot, do backflips. They don't even really know what being fit is. They just know from growing up in the environment that the last 20, 30 plus years we've grown up in, that people need to be fitter than they are, that they need to be fit. But it's never really clearly defined what fit is. The analogy I use is an Olympic swimmer is not fit to be an Olympic weightlifter, and an Olympic weightlifter is not fit to be an Olympic swimmer. Both are very fit individuals, but in their own individual context. So we need to kind of work at breaking down, what the hell do I mean by fit, right? So set a goal. So dream big, right? Dream big. Delve into the emotions of what are you really aiming for. So I'm not ashamed to admit part of my emotional attachment to me lifting. One of the reasons I started out as a very weak, pale, skinny, picked on kid through pretty much most of my schooling. And when I had the chance to actually realize I could push myself and I could be a strong individual, that still to this day really empowers me to a degree to hit the gym hard and to grow and to improve. Part of that's vanity, part of that's insecurity, but that is a big driver behind me proving to myself I have the capacity to be strong. And that's just a reality of that for me. Now I'm kind of transferring that reality to, I need to be strong for my girls so I can be a protector and carer for them. So it becomes a bit multifaceted, but you dream big with what you're wanting to achieve for yourself and then kind of funnel it down. Come back to reality. The phrase, what's the phrase? Shoot for the stars, maybe you'll reach the moon, right? So you can dream big, because dreaming big, you want to do a 40K marathon, you want to do Australia's Strongman or something and compete, you want to hit a 500 total or something powerlifting, and you're like, that is so out far my reach, but I'm excited at the idea of even trying to reach it. And that excitement, that having that emotional attachment to that goal will at least get you part of the way. So make sure the goals you have some emotional investment behind, and then you can kind of bring them back to reality and go, okay, you're not at a 500 total yet. Maybe we aim for a 200 total. Let's start there. Let's start with that. So delve into your emotions, write the desire or goal down, and then start laying out the steps. Make sure you're clear, concise, and avoid being vague, like I said. Don't just say, I want to be fit. What the hell does fit mean? For each individual, fit is going to mean something different. My church is full of people who love bike riding, and I'm not going to say they're unfit individuals. They're quite fit. They're healthy. If we're saying fit is healthy, they're healthy, but I'm healthy from them in a different way. I still challenge my body, cardiovascularly, lungs, heart, and everything. I'm totally fine. But I get fit through weightlifting. They get fit through bike riding. So we're both fit in different ways. Make the goal quantifiable. Again, don't just say be fit, and don't just say, I want to get strong, because you can't quantify that. What's strong? If you're a really weak individual, you can barely bench 20 kilos. Strong for you might be a 60 kilo bench. For me, 60 kilo bench is like pretty freaking easy. If you're Mark, 60 kilo bench is like, I laugh at that and I eat it for breakfast. And there are guys who laugh at like me struggling to get 1 rep for 100. Again, Mark laughs at that. And there are other guys out there who laugh at a 200 kilo bench, right? So just make sure when you say I want to be strong, you are asking yourself, what do I mean by that? Try and put it into a number. Okay, it keeps telling me that someone is saying stuff in chat, but it's just John's message over and over again. What's the difference? Oh, it's just John messaging. So, okay. What is the difference between fit and health? Well, that's a good question, John. I'll quickly... Actually, John, save that to the end. Save that to the end. Remind me at the end. I'll come back to it. I want to make sure I finish on time and don't waffle like I tend to. And lastly, just establish the plan. You get the goal, you lay it out, you make it clear, this is what, or these things are what I'm aiming for. And then you go, okay, how the hell do I get there? And we're going to quickly kind of try and talk on that. And then you act on the plan. Practical implications. Behavior is motivated by values. So again, this is an important bit, kind of coming back to the emotion. Make sure you set a value, or you have a value behind your goal. It's common to set a goal, but in the moment of actually acting on the goal, you have little to no motivation behind it. You have to care about your goal. The biggest barrier I see in people is, I will start with this step, but they don't set a time and place to actually act on it. So I make a lot of uses of my alarms. I had an alarm before this meeting just to remind myself to record it, because that's a small detail that I would have likely forgotten. There's another alarm. I forget even what it says at the end. I can't actually remember what it says, but I have an alarm that's going to go off in about 10 minutes to remind me of something to mention to everyone so I don't forget. I can't remember what it is, but I know I said it. So setting a time and a place, using your phone, using the ease of reminders and technology we have to work in our favor to actually start getting a plan going. Now, questions to unpack. This is a really, really interesting thing that I got from my motivational interviewing book. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about this. These are some of the questions you can ask yourself to help understand where your drive and where your commitment is coming from. So these come from the book, How to Do Motivational Interviewing by Bill Matulik. I have that on Audible. So a question to evoke desire for a particular goal. Why would you want to exercise? A question to evoke ability. How do you know that you could if you tried? A question to evoke reason. So you're being rational with yourself. What are your 3 best reasons to change your diet and exercise? Like, what is it going to do for you? Why, if you're talking to yourself in a mirror, or you've got a copy of yourself there, what would you say to yourself to appeal to your rationality? What are the 3, 4, 5, whatever big reasons you could give to yourself why you should make this change? Evoking a need question. In what ways does your current situation concern or affect you? So we contrast with the want and the reasons of why you should do this. We contrast that with, well, if you don't change, what is likely to happen? If you keep smoking, if you keep gaining weight, if you keep not wanting to engage in exercise of any kind, knowing that you already have high blood pressure and a family history of cardiovascular disease and other things, what do you think is likely to happen in that situation? So you're kind of waking yourself to the reality of the need that you have. And then evoking commitment. How are you going to achieve this? We've discussed with the previous 4 questions why you should do this, why you want to do it, why what things are possibly going to go wrong if you don't make the changes. So now you've got all that information there. How are you actually going to act on it? And so what we're going to do is, anyone who wants to unmute themselves, this is the little practical component. We are going very well for time, so I'm glad I'm not pissing about. If there's anyone who would like to throw a goal out there and they're happy to work through, oh, that didn't go in the right order. If there's anyone who would like to speak up and tell me a goal that they have, and we can kind of ask you these questions, and here you have a go. John has unmuted himself, so I'm going to assume he's keen.
I just basically want to know if I was supposed to be talking throughout if I was supposed to be chatting.
Now's a good time to chat. There will be time at the end where I will,
okay, so basically the few things that I said was the cutting carbs thing. That's obviously a very easy way to dump a lot of weight.
Yep.
as most people generally consume way more than necessary.
Sure. Yep.
And the second one was the last 2% of building was your hot water analogy.
Yep.
So that, as you were saying, is I was just reiterating of having hot water is the last 2% of building a house. That's something that's not even thought about right up until release of date.
Oh, I had my thoughts backwards then. Well, then, yeah, make sure you've got your bricks and mortar in place before you worry about the hot water. The point was don't worry about the small things if you don't have the big things.
Exactly. So the small things like hot water, electricity, everything, that's pretty much after building's done.
Cool. Okay.
That's your last thoughts. And the last one was, what's the difference between fit in quotations and health?
Yeah, I'll come back to that at the end. Does anyone, it can be you, John, but does anyone want to shout out a particular goal that they have and they're happy to kind of with the group be the example to kind of go through these discussion questions? Does anyone want to have a go? Matt?
Yeah, all right. It's a big goal, but like at some point I'd like to do a bodybuilding show.
Oh, wow. Cool. I didn't even know that. Or if you have said it, it's been a while.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go through these questions with Matt. Why do you want to do a bodybuilding show?
As someone who's been pretty unhappy with body image for quite a long time, it'd be good to get my aesthetic to a point where I feel it could be not only kind of good and self-satisfactory, but competitive.
Okay, cool. All right. So we could unpack that a bit more. Like the point of these questions is to kind of take their answer and then delve into it and kind of create a discussion around each question. So we could go into Matt's answer there a bit more and unpack his desire in a bit more detail, but we'll kind of just skim through so you guys understand a bit of how it would work. Okay, so how do you know you could actually pull off the work needed to do a bodybuilding comp if you tried? How do you know you're capable?
I mean, I don't, but I theorize that I could be capable because of kind of, not that I'm in any amazing point with powerlifting, but from start to where I am now, is like I know that I can put in a hell of a lot of effort. I know that like the process is a thing that exists, and if you follow the process, it'll work. So I figure there's a process for that.
Okay, cool. So in there's a little bit of doubt we could unpack, but there's also the confidence in Matt's self-awareness of his own abilities and his past experience for him to kind of rely on that gives him confidence he could pull that off. And what are your three best reasons? Or what are three reasons for doing a bodybuilding comp that are important to you?
Number one is seemingly in some sense counterintuitive to the end goal, but the health benefits that will come along the way of just dropping fat for one. I'm trying to think of two more. I suppose the emotional benefit, like I said, that's a pretty good reason to want to do it, is the not necessarily the validation of like trying to win or anything, but making it through that journey. And then I'm scraping here.
That's all right.
Yeah, there's two that I can think of.
Cool. Okay, two. We start with two. We go from there. Great. Only two left. So in what ways does your current position affect you? Like pre-bodybuilding. And bodybuilding is a tricky one because I wouldn't want you to have all of your self-esteem and everything built into the bodybuilding comp. So I'd probably do this question a little bit differently. But yeah, is there a need or is there a problem that you think the bodybuilding show would fix?
Yeah, I'm probably quite driven by competition. So rather than, like I said, the validation through competition, it gives me a reason to work towards becoming disciplined in that. Like with lifting weights, I wanted to lift heavy, so that was my initial motivation. So I became disciplined to try and do that. So it just as a catalyst for developing discipline for that, some kind of accountability.
Okay, cool. Excellent. All right. And next one, Evoking commitment. How are you going to actually achieve this?
Stop eating burgers and cake. Address nutrition, I suppose, is going to be the first one. And now Ryan's muted.
I was trying to tell my phone to set an important alarm for myself, and it screwed me right when I was trying to multitask. I had an alarm go off that told me to take some medication, and I can't do it right now. So there we go. Okay, not 8 a.m. I'll be very upset if I take it that late. Okay, sorry about that. My alarm goes off at 7:30, and I forgot it was going to go off. See, I live on alarms now. Okay, cool. All right. So we unpack with Matt the desire, the ability, the reason, the need, and how we would be able to commit to it. And all of those are a discussion in and of themselves. Cool. So getting the ball rolling. You need some form of accountability. That can be a spouse or a friend or a partner, a workmate. It can be someone or something, phone alarms, a checklist, something that you kind of go back to each week that said, did you or did you not achieve this goal? Things like that are a good way for you to stay accountable and on top of actually starting and sticking with the goal to start with. Changing a circumstance or environment. So I'm a very, very easily distracted person, and I can get distracted with a fun little game or something on my computer if it helps me have a mental break. So, I have to get up and move away from the computer, do things on pen and paper, or I uninstall things on my computer if they're becoming too big a distraction. I've got kids at home and I work from home. Sometimes I go to cafes, or back in the good old days where we could actually go outside. I went to the Campbelltown Catholic Club and would do work there. So change in circumstance or environment can be really helpful to help you start working towards some of these goals if your circumstance and or environment are working against you. So make sure you factor that in. Again, ensure you have a means of quantifying progress towards a goal. So a good thing about a performance-related goal in the gym, like a 200-kilo squat, is you can track your 1RM or your training progress over time, and the numbers are really quite clear as to whether you're making progress or not. That's one nice thing about weights, is the numbers don't lie. You can you can follow the numbers and they tell you if you're going in the right direction or if you need to change. Other goals are a little bit harder. If your goal is maybe you're not even really worried about weight loss or weight gain or anything, but you know that you're not eating overly well and you want to eat cleaner perhaps, then maybe a way you would quantify that would be tracking your food, writing it down every day what you had, and over time you can flick back and go, oh, instead of having a packet of Doritos, I had a small pack of, rice crackers or something that's a little bit less fatty and calorie dense. And you may be able to track it that way. But make sure you have a way of tracking whatever goal you're working towards in some way that's quantifiable. Baby but consistent steps. So sometimes I get people who are really, really zealous and really, really excited to work towards a goal, and they expect it to happen a lot quicker than they're able to, or their circumstance shifts. COVID-19 hit everyone. Circumstances shift and they struggle really hard to roll with that punch, and they just kind of crumble. Or they're really hyped up for a short period of time and then they crumble. And they just kind of yo-yo a lot. So you want to try and find a way to be consistent with the steps that you take working towards your goals. Baby steps is usually a good way to start, especially as a beginner. I'm a lot slower now with my beginners than I used to be. Baby steps, get the basic stuff going, start just doing stuff in the gym, doesn't have to be too complex. Start just maybe writing down what you're having 2 or 3 days a week or every day if you're up for it. You don't have to track it in terms of weighing everything, but you just write it down. So you're becoming aware of, oh, this is how I sleep. This is what training feels like because I've never done training before. This is what my eating's like. Oh, I didn't realize I ate that badly, or I did this, or I did that with my coffee or whatever else, right? Baby steps, really, really important. We're pretty much done. Key takeaways: be clear on what your goals are and establish a plan. Be objective and self-aware in how you troubleshoot reaching these goals, because there will be problems along the way. So try and be as objective as possible. When you fail, and you are guaranteed to fail at some point, don't beat yourself up too much. Think about, well, what went wrong and how can I actually address it? And don't just stop with the theoretical, which I can get stuck doing. Don't just get stuck with, I didn't go to bed early enough and it's been a problem for like 6 months. And it's like, well, what are you doing about it? Well, actually not much. I'm just kind of complaining about it. Oh, right. Okay. That's what the alarm was for. actually put in place something to resolve a problem that you've had. So again, if there's a problem, don't just figure it out in your head and then never act on it. Actually try and implement some kind of resolution to that. Make time when you're doing your goal setting to link your emotions to your goal. And your emotions change. So a goal that's really important to you or you're really excited about at one stage, if you've been in the gym long enough, sometimes sessions just start to get hard. And you have to almost revisit, well, why is this important for me? And re-psych yourself back up. Or revisit if it's maybe time to shift goals, change your paradigm a little. It depends on the person and the circumstance. But whatever your goal is, you have to have some emotion behind it. You have to care about it. So take the time to do that. And look at how you can change your environment to make adjusting to a change easier. I've already gone into how you can change your environment a little, but another way you could do this is, I wrote an article the other day, or a blog about goals and adapting to change as well. And one thing I said in that was try and piggyback maybe some new goals off some already existing habits. So you want to start reading more books. That's one thing I've done. And you have a commute to and from work every day. Grab Audible. Audible is a wonderful service. I really like it. Not sponsored at all, but I think it's great. You can listen to a book in the car. If you have a 15-minute commute, that's 30 minutes each day of a book. You'll get through a book pretty quickly in like 2 weeks, 30 minutes a day. And if you're a quick listener, you can listen to it 1.5 speed, and you're getting through it in a quarter of the time or something. That's not right. But anyway, you get through it faster. So you can piggyback new habits off existing habits, and that can really help you. All right, that's the key takeaways done. It's 22, so I'm happy with how long I took. That was about 30 minutes. We're going to open up to questions and discussions. One